Hello, I'm Danny Nucci.
And I am Jason Burns.
And this is the What About podcast, new format, season 3 launch. Hello, Jason. Welcome. Did you have a nice hiatus? That was fun.
It was a lot. It was like, a slumber. I'm like rumpled foreskin over here.
Oh my God. Really? That's how we're starting? Okay. I'm rolling with it. No, I'm rolling with it.
I like to nap, so I just napped the whole time.
Woof. I know, but the reference is special. Anyway, I'm very excited about the new format. We have a main guest, an expert guest, and a musical guest. Our first main guest is Noah Centineo, direct from Australia, talking to us about perspective shifts. He just finished shooting Gundam. And then we have Sathnam Sanghera, who wrote a book about George Michael, who I absolutely love. And that was great. We sort of fanboyed about George Michael for a while, and Jason jumped in when we let him. And our musical guest is Josh Joplin, who plays a little ditty for us, which is great. So here we go. Season 3, Noah Centineo.
In your impression, does age or experience bring about a shift in perspective? Do you have to live and live those experiences, cool, or just getting older?
I think it's experiences.
Yeah, you could. Somebody who's 19 and lived a hard life probably has a different perspective than somebody who didn't.
I've not thought about this at all. You're like,
that's why I want to talk to you about this. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I literally was just like, oh no, I'm going to get this fucking kid to start chatting about this topic because I know you're so fucking deep. We've had such deep conversations and I'm like, okay, no, I really want to hear what he says about this. And when I think about it, it's a shift. Yeah. So it's more that you have one and then it shifts to something else. Like, for instance, when you were playing soccer in Florida, did you think you would have this perspective just a few years later?
What's weird about
how has that
shifted
shift for you?
Is that it happened at all. I was active when I was 8, though. So weirdly, in a messed up way, yes. But what's crazy about the whole thing, that question about is it age or is it experiences? I remember when I was, like 19 years old, and we had just met maybe for like a year, Nooch, on the Fosters. So I was talking to this person, they were older than me, and they were like, how old are you? I was like, I'm 19. And they were like, oh, you're just a baby. And I remember saying that to them. I was like, it's really more so, like maybe in years I'm 19, but I feel like in experiences I'm older. I was that annoying 19-year-old guy. It was like, maybe in years, but
But
the old soul, right?
But you forget that when you're talking to younger people, you're thinking about your younger self, but you're not giving room for all the years and all the advancement and all the perspectives. And you take it into social media. What a 19-year-old is privy to in a way that they were not 25, 30 years ago.
But it is an experience. Like, you go through, you might have an idea about yourself. You think, I love myself. Like, I know what I need.
I don't think I've ever said that, but go on.
I like me some me, dude.
I love me some me. I sound like Terrell Owens.
I love me some me.
I love me some me.
Yeah. You might be like, I know myself. I know how I would react in this situation, or, I know what kind of partner I am. And then you meet someone and it tests that. You kick the tires and then you realize, I actually react completely different, or I'm very different in this situation. That's the perspective shift, comes from like making decisions in one perspective over and over and over again that usually I think lead to some sort of consequence. And I think that's where the perspective shift comes from consequence more than it does from like, man, that really worked out. If something worked.
Necessity, I would say necessity. Like, sometimes, like, for instance, if, like, I remember this one experience, Noah, where I was very Nucci-centric for a period of time. I was really consumed with, me. And so I was like kind of heavy, man. It's just like I was like a heavy period of my life. And I go to this charity thing for St. Jude's Children's Hospital.
Oh man, yeah, it's just
right. So I've been walking around with my problems. So I've been, things have been, I've been struggling, man. You know what I mean? like struggling with some things, man. And I go and I'm at this charity function, and there's it's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah.
The function was fantastic, and celebrities spoke, and they showed video. I left my perspective was not. It shattered. I started bawling. My wife Paula looks over at me and goes, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No,
yes,
I'm not
fine,
okay."
and that's why I'm not okay.
Yeah. It was one of those, like, you think you're one way, and then something happens, and it literally changes. And by the way, I'll say this. I don't know that I've been the same since.
Yeah. I mean, well, perspective shifts sometimes. I mean, it's like when they say, if you're trying to find love, you're not going to find it if you're looking for it. I think if you're trying to find, if you're going on a walkabout and you want to find yourself, it's harder than if you're just, something like this happens with you. I had a similar experience. Danny, we've talked about it, where I went to a meditation thing and something happened. Something just unlocked in my head a lot of crap and shit from the past that I had never dealt with. And all of a sudden, just by having that one event where I was doing some meditation, my perspective completely shift. And I was just trying to go to relax. It's like when you're not looking for
that's
it, that's
actually
when
quite
shit finds
interesting
you.
too, because like this concept of doing absolutely nothing and then it releasing, that I feel like me hearing that, I'm like, fuck, I wish that how shifts took place more often, because what I find is that I have to.
That you're centered, and they take they shift all on their own as a result of you being
like, that's
extremely
wonderful.
present.
Like for me, I have to go and like slam my head against the wall for a year and set myself on fire and be like, oh, after a year of it, be like, oh, that's not.
Ow.
I shouldn't do that. Like maybe.
There it is. That's the experiential perspective shift, right? That's the one where you keep, like you said, repeated pain and going, how about now?
Hurts.
Yeah, no, it still hurts. What about now?
Yeah.
Yep, still hurts.
Yeah, it still
just
hurts.
Making sure. How about now?
And it's like it
hurts.
should be. So maybe that's just, and maybe that's the age part of it too, is maybe, Jason, once you go through those experiences enough, you start to center, you start to make those shifts, and then you're able to be more receptive to the pattern recognition.
Yeah. And I think as you get older too, and I have noticed this, and a lot of people always say it, is like you start to not give a shit about what other people think as much. So it's easier to make changes because you're not thinking about how are other people going to perceive the changes I'm making in my life.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest perspective shifts, because there's a period of time where you are absolutely consumed by how you're perceived by others. And then through the pain of experiencing that and trying to adjust yourself over and over again,
maybe
you start
I should
to
just
go,
be me.
Perhaps.
But think about it in terms of, like, you guys work in an industry where you move away from your circles that you grew up with, and then you're around all these other people. But the people who stay in those small towns, stay in those circles, it must be so hard to change their perspective because everybody already sees them a certain way too. You guys, if you're from Florida, right? So when you and move to wherever you move to, you have a whole new base to start over. It's like when you go to college, if kids go to college, they can
there's also this there's so many. But like Danny, to what you were saying, is like there's that quote of the quote is, I am who I think you think I am. And to be so obsessed with that is something that I think is, like what you were saying, Jason, taught in family dynamics. Like we watch how our parents want to be perceived to their friends, and how we want to be perceived to our friends through that when we go to school and we come up. And like a lot of it is like not just monkey see, monkey do, but assimilation, right? Like I don't want to be the odd man out in my friend group because then I get ostracized or I get bullied or whatever it is. And so when like my father, is a prime example of somebody, I think, that completely got out of Maybe because he's from Brooklyn and New York, which isn't exactly, that city's so diverse and so multicultural. I won't make it specific. You have somebody maybe whose entire family lived in, some farm town in the middle of America for generations.
Sure.
Small town, small country, and small county, and for that person to get out and to go and move somewhere else and to get a different education or go into a different field that is completely removed from their family and their social circles. And then let's say they have a family, they meet someone, they have kids. Those kids are primed to think in a way that gets them out of any situation or want to go explore and like be a black sheep, if you will. There's not a lot of people, I think, that have parents that were willing to separate themselves from that perspective of their community. And so it's weird. It's almost like nepotism, or like having the privilege of, like, if you came from a stable financial situation, if you had parents that were willing to rock the boat and be black sheeps and be independent thinkers in their community, this is like a whole nother version of having a leg up,
Yeah, I mean, I guess like when it comes to social or political climate too, what everything's going on in the world today, you got two sides here in the States. You got two sides that are constantly warring against each other.
It's all good here, dude.
Hey, well,
One love.
Well, it's funny. We did an episode with this professor, and we did history repeating itself. And his perspective on the world today is that
there's the word.
It's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But we just, because we have our perspective, we only think of us in the present tense. We don't see that, hey, by the way, things used to be much worse, but because we're all egomaniacs and as humans, we see it as our age and
perspective shift.
This is bad. Things are bad.
Yeah.
I got one for the kids, for you. I got one for the kids, Noah. How is your perspective about this industry, the entertainment industry, changed in the last 10 years? How you like that? Little something light to chew on, and you better tread lightly.
Yeah. It's changed a lot, I guess. When I was younger, it was magic. It was like, I just want to be on Disney Channel and I just want to be an actor. And then as I got older, it became, it's more of a craft. This isn't just something I need to like take this seriously. There's like people that have come before me. There's conversations that are being had artistically, that maybe I want to partake in as an artist as well, And then I thought that you get a good team and it's going to be done for you, Not true. And then you realize, like the God, I forget the director, phenomenal director, Danny, you'll probably know it. He said, he was doing an interview and he said, I realized the cavalry's not coming. I thought I got the right team and they were going to give me the right actors for my projects or the right writers and the right this and that. And, you think the cavalry's coming for you, right? You do a movie, it gets some heat and, cavalry's not coming.
Right. Because then you become the guy that all of a sudden everybody cares. Everybody's taking you out for the business meeting dinner and everything. They want to make every project you want to make.
And you're being wooed and schmoozed.
Yes.
Wooed. Been wooed and schmoozed, have you, Noah?
And they say they want to be in the Noah business, right? That's like
but there's also politics to that. Learning, I think, when I did To All the Boys, that was that moment, right? It was like, this is like a young actor and followers on social media now, and CAA signed him, and like, cool. But the fact of the matter is there are other clients at CAA, and you have to be very careful about who's representing you, right? Because there's just industry dynamics where certain clients will take precedent or priority. And especially depending on who is your 100%. Agent in these, in the tier system of hierarchy, where all the resources are getting funneled, right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It does. It's amazing that you can understand. Obviously, you're not, and thank God, don't ever be. But it's understandable how people can take a very bitter perspective after being in this industry for a long time. And the fact that you can remain, excited and enjoy it and take it for what it is, right? It's like, great. It's great for now. Let's see what happens.
I think if that's the thing, right, is if you get steamrolled by it and forgotten, and you don't take accountability of the decisions that you made or did not make, if you don't take accountability of the team that you put in place to represent you, if you don't take accountability for a lot of those things, I think it's easy to feel like this industry came and just completely ravaged you and took advantage of you and then left you for dead. And in a way, sometimes it does do that. By the way, it's like
it has a history of doing that. It eats its young. Actually, it eats its young.
It absolutely does.
Wow.
But then for me, the perspective shift was, oh, okay. How about I start my own company, and how about I make independent movies that I really like, and how about I help first-time filmmakers make their directorial debut for a feature film? If I'm not getting the roles I want, why don't I find them and leverage the little bit of value that I have to go and do that? So then it becomes about a rebuild, and rebuilding on my terms with my taste and the people I want to build with. And then from that,
talk about the cavalry not coming. I am the cavalry.
That's precisely it. You just realize, you go, okay, what do I have?
Yeah.
You have to go, I'm stranded in the middle of an island, in the middle of the ocean, but I have this boat, still I have an oar, I have these things. What do I have that I can build? And for me, it wasn't like I was stranded in the middle of an island. I think some people, it's different. You just have to look at what you have.
Sometimes in feeling, it feels that way. Obviously, you have the perspective that that's not really what's happening. But, there's something about having a feeling and a sense of something, and also having the perspective that perhaps it's just a feeling and just a sense of something, but it doesn't make it any easier because that's the experience you're having.
Well, yeah. And it's really easy to go from one success to them only seeing you as that particular type of actor. And then unless you take the steps to be your own cavalry, you're going to be playing the same role over and over again.
Right. Unless I start saying no to those things, that's the perspective, right? Like, this is the thing. You have to understand, it feels like I'm being abandoned. It feels like I'm being typecasted. It feels like people that cared about me being on the cover of their magazine or like being in their movie or doing the thing don't care about me anymore. All of those things are true. But at the same time, what are you doing? What are you actually doing to try to change that narrative? And I think the issue comes when people don't take accountability or don't have the perspective to go, yes, you feel these things and it's okay that you feel these things. And yeah, this sucks, but also get up.
What? Yeah. And then what? Okay, cool. Got that. Cool. Now what?
Now what?
Now what? Listen, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Dude, I literally could chat about this stuff with you for hours and hours and hours.
Are all your segments 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're 15 minutes. Obviously, it leaves me wanting more, but that's part of the deal.
I am going to ask one last question, Noah, which you can end on this. Are you seeking a new perspective now? You're in Australia. Are you trying to find yourself in a new way right now?
Absolutely, dude. I am, dude. I'm trying. I feel like I'm at I'm in flux right now. I just finished this movie called Gundam, and I've done 3 studio films in the last year, all big IP,
all big
movies,
ones, yeah.
As well as like our indie stuff. But I'm coming off of like a year and a half, just constant work. I'm burnt out, I've been burnt out. I'm not burnt out. I'm tired.
Well, you're on the back of your strength. This is the end, right? You're right at the end, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm at the end. I've just wrapped yesterday. Yeah. I've packed up my suitcases. I'm going to go spend time with some family. But I'm going in straight now into like the press tours and stuff. So I'm just sitting here and I'm going, I don't have to be an actor anymore for a few months, which is really exciting to me. I've just been living with these different characters, and I feel like I'm in flux. I feel like there's a lot that's going to change this year in a professional sense. For good or for bad. I mean, who knows? No one knows. You know how these are, they get all tanked, dude.
Otherwise, executive jobs wouldn't keep changing.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Executives wouldn't be 22 every time you go into a room.
Yeah. If you're at Netflix longer than 6 months, apparently you have tenure now. You know, it's like, but I don't know. I think my new perspective shift is I'm trying to like something's not exactly clicking in my head. Like just something. And like, I think Danny, we've talked about this a lot. Like there's always this like itch, you know, that's hard to scratch. And I think I'm just looking forward to doing what you did, Jason, which is hopefully take some time to just sit and see if anything cataclysmic happens inside.
I did this personal project after that meditation about a year ago, where I sent over 1,000 letters to people from every industry, business, all notable people, asking them what they thought the meaning of life was. And I've gotten hundreds of letters back.
Bro.
Oh my God. Everything from Carol Burnett to Neil deGrasse Tyson, all these people sent me letters back thinking about what they think the meaning of life is. And it's been a really interesting ride. And I was only going to do 100, and then I kept getting more and more responses. So I kept sending them out, and I'm up to like 1,200 letters that I sent.
Yeah, you're getting one. You're getting one, just so you know.
Okay. What do you think the meaning of life is, Jason, after amalgamating all of these meanings?
I think we have to live like dogs, which I'm a big dog guy, which is that you find the happiness in any situation you're in, which is my dogs will, wherever they're at, they will make themselves comfortable by appreciating the now that they're in. And so that's really what I try to do now is just
how's
try
that
to
for
be.
Perspective?
Just try to
That's
be.
good. Fuck you. That's very good.
All right. I love that kid. Our next guest is Sathnam Sanghera to talk about George Michael.
He has a new book called Tonight the Music Seems So Loud, The Meaning of George Michael, via Pegasus Books, available now because he was deeply influenced by George.
Yeah, I love somebody that was a fan before he wrote a book and happened to become an author. So here he is, Sathnam Sanghera.
Sathnam, thank you so much for being here. We're talking George Michael today, which I'm super excited about. And Danny, I know you're a fan of George, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I got some questions because I am a diehard George Michael fan. Always have been.
I can see the similarity, Danny. I can see it.
There's no, you know what? God bless you for saying anything, that there's any similarity in the way that I look. Because that is a beautiful man, George Michael.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't think so, which is what I took from your book, is that he had a lot of, self-concern in terms of like what his view to the rest of the world was, how people viewed him.
Yeah, he had body dysmorphia, I think you'd call it now. It would only be photographed from the left side of his face. And yeah, he thought he was really unattractive and it became a sex symbol.
It's so fascinating how you can't separate the kind of music and the artistry of the man from the culture and the climate in which he came up. Can you imagine him in today's climate, with just, the fact that you can be out and it's celebrated rather than, criticized?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also it's not just that. It's like, I've said the word body dysmorphia. The press in the 80s was really cruel. Yeah. They'd regularly write about how people were looking fat or thin or their hair looked terrible. So if you're self-conscious anyway, it's a terrible time to become famous.
And the English press in particular. Scathing.
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you, I was a passive George Michael fan. I didn't really know much of his work outside of the hits. I think I was most introduced to him because I grew up in the 80s and 90s and I had MTV on all the time. And although I wasn't waiting for his videos, I saw all of them. But after reading your book, I went back and I listened to his whole catalog and I was surprised by how much I knew and appreciated his music. And I'm curious if you think that's going to be a common theme for people who read the book who go, Whoa, I appreciate George Michael a lot more than I knew.
Yeah, and also you say you only knew the hits. There were a lot of hits.
A lot of hits.
He had the highest hit rate in the history of the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, 19 entries, 8 number ones, which is more than the Beatles, Michael Jackson, or anyone. Like percentage-wise, he did very well. And you all know the songs. And also, songs like Last Christmas becomes more and more successful every year. Careless Whisper is a meme on TikTok and Instagram. Father Figure was interpolated by Taylor Swift. You can't go to any wedding disco or Friday night disco without hearing George Michael, I think. So even if you don't know his back catalogue, you know it.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the, sort of younger generation, they have a sense of him, but they've not done a deep dive. And when you do a deep dive, you realize where so much of the music that is popular now, certainly pop music, how much of an influence he had on what we're listening to now. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about his brain injury and how that led to well, it's true, right? And how that led to the way he was obsessive about music.
Yes, it's quite a bizarre story, but he told it himself several times. But he wasn't really into music as a kid. And then one day he fell down these stairs of this cold primary school in North London, hit his head against a radiator, had quite a serious injury, knocked himself out, a lot of blood. And after that was massively into music, but in a really obsessive way. He would sit in his room singing and re-singing songs. Part of the reason I think he became a great covers act is that, of that obsessive kind of listening that he did. His first records were, Tom Jones and the Supremes. And he famously said that his voice kind of ended up somewhere in between those two records, But yeah, it's weird, the things that turn you into a musician.
And he was, and talk a little bit, because he wasn't sort of a properly trained musician, although he did have, I think he learned a number of instruments as a kid, and he could play a lot of different things, but he essentially, piece by piece, played everything on most of his records, but just not from beginning to end.
Yeah, no, it's quite surreal trying to make sense of his creative process because he oversold his talent, but also more than that, undersold it at the same time.
Yeah.
So there are certain of hits that where he played, produced, arranged everything. Last Christmas is the famous one. He played everything on that, including the sleigh bells, even though the engineer volunteered and he was like, no, I want to play everything. A Different Corner, Everything She Wants. He played everything on those records. And it's kind of fallen out of fashion, that idea of an artist doing everything on a track. Nowadays, people like Taylor Swift have teams of people, right?
Well, it's not required, or usually, there's so many incredible studio musicians that they're going to elevate whatever you've written just by their talent and expertise. But there was something about George in that what he heard in his head, he was relentless about trying to get it on record.
Well, and Sathnam, you have that whole section in the book about the saxophone. And
you got to tell that story. You got to tell that story, Jordan. It's so good because it's so iconic.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the most famous thing he ever wrote was probably the sax solo in Careless Whisper, right? It's called the national anthem for saxophones. It's so famous, but he couldn't play the saxophone himself. Despite that, over 2 recordings, including one with Jerry Wexler, he auditioned 12 saxophone players before he was happy with what he ended up with. And you've got to remember, he was barely out of his teens. He was firing some of the most famous saxophone players in America and in England.
And it wasn't what he Wexler, heard. Right?
But he also, right. But he also, he essentially wrote the melody of the sax solo on a keyboard or something, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so he didn't really know what a saxophone could do. Turns out it's quite hard to play that solo on a saxophone because of
what's interesting is the little trill at the beginning, which sounds like it's just 2 notes, but it's not. There's a little, I'm a saxophone player myself. There's a little trill at the beginning that I don't really know how you, like, it's, you can sort of do it, but you can't really do it like the record.
Yeah, so in the end, the engineer had to speed up or speed down the record. I forget which one, but they had to mess around with the recording to make it sound right. And you can hear that whenever people try to play the song live, it's never quite right.
Yeah, it's a very high alto.
Yeah. That's the way he recorded. I mean, people praise the vocals on Faith, and there's videos online that go on and on about the perfection of the vocal on Faith. It's perfect because he recorded it syllable by syllable. He would record one consonant, stop the recording,
insane,
and say to his engineer, "Was that right? Let's do it again." Even he couldn't sing it.
It's a good story to tell young singers who want to record, a track from beginning to end to really get the sense of it or the feel of it. You tell them that story about George Michael, piece by piece, on one of the most famous and wonderful vocals in pop music.
Well, and this is a great segue to one of my favorite lines in your book, which you write, "But I realize now that my despair was misplaced because the creative process is as much a part of the artist as their personality." And that really stuck with me because it's so true that in order for them to get to wherever they are, they need to go through their process. And I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about how George's process sometimes haunted him because he went through long spells of writer's block.
Yeah, gosh, he went through like 5 years, 6 years between albums sometimes. He spent 6 months recording Fast Love. But yeah, I think Patience was called Patience because he was talking about how patient his fans were because he could be so slow. And there are various reasons behind that. But equally, the way he recorded, if he messed around with it, he might not have had that ability to produce such standout tunes, I get it as a writer too, I couldn't tell you the first thing about grammar. And I know people who are really good at grammar, but they can't write. In a way, if you become professional about it, you ruin the magic. And also the way he wrote, what it meant is that the music was very simple. So all the emphasis was on his vocals, and that was his main talent. And that's where the magic came. So in a way, it kind of worked.
Yeah, like I want a well-schooled, trained person building my house. But when it comes to like art, I want somebody who doesn't know the rules so that they don't play within those rules. They play outside of them and create something new.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And because he didn't know the rules, he often broke them and did magical things. I think he didn't want to analyze it. He thought, and a lot of songwriters say this, they feel that the songs just come to them by magic. And so he didn't want to talk about his process or overanalyze it because he thought the magic could go. And the thing is, it does tend to go. Almost every artist eventually loses the ability to write in the way they could in their 20s.
Having gone, deeply into his process, was there anything that was somewhat consistent in terms of how he did it other than I'm going to wait until it's right, which he did a lot of?
Actually, one consistent thing is that he often wrote on the move. So he often wrote in cars. Freed on the Wham track came to him in a car onto an airport. He often wrote on airplanes. And this is something that comes up a lot with songwriters too, and writers, in that they have their best ideas when they're not in front of a computer or an instrument. It comes unconsciously in the background. You almost need to be doing something else. Have you heard this before?
Yes, yeah. A lot of people write doing the dishes. There's something about something meditative where your mind is occupied somewhere that allows for another part of it to open up. But I find it fascinating that he knew to capture it. So he's on the airport and he knows to capture. He's like, okay, and he didn't have notes on his iPhone, so he's got to get a piece of paper and find a way to write it and get the idea and make sure he just doesn't lose it.
Yeah, he did this thing whilst recording Monkey where the band were playing in the studio and he said, "Oh, I don't know how to finish this. I'm just going to go for a drive." And he was gone for 5-6 hours. And the band are still there playing.
Sure.
He comes back and he's got the idea.
Do you think, and I don't know if I picked up on this in the book, but in your research, do you think he was self-conscious of the fact that he couldn't play instruments well? And maybe that's part of the reason why he did everything himself, because, you go in the studio with a great producer and all of a sudden they can pick up any instrument and say, what about a little bit of this? But everything was in his head.
Yeah, I think he was very self-conscious about it. Part of the reason why there's almost no video of him playing any instrument whatsoever, But also I think he was in awe of Prince, who could play everything. That's
just not fair. I mean, everybody's in awe of Prince, right?
Yeah, but Prince also couldn't read music, right? There's Paul McCartney can't, Elvis Costello. It's a long tradition of pop musicians who can't really read music, right?
Well, a lot of people are fans of artists. You took it one step further. You decided you were going to spend 1.5 years of your life writing a book about an artist you were a fan of. When you went to your publisher or your agent and said, hey, this is what I'm working on, coming from the world you do in history and deep journalism, did they go, what are you doing? What's happening?
Well, I did move publishers, which says something.
Okay, there you go.
but I just felt, you know what? There's so many books about Dylan and Prince and Bowie, and actually even Taylor Swift. There's hundreds of books about Taylor Swift, and there's not one book that takes George Michael seriously. There's lots of trashy biographies, but I just thought the 10th year of his death since he's died, I felt that the world could handle one book taking him seriously.
Well, it's also the perspective, looking at it from the way the world is now, I think just makes this way more fascinating. In what, he was limited in how he could express himself. He had a very tumultuous love life. He had a lot of loss. A tremendous amount of loss. And yet, it's one of the things I love about the way he sings. It's struggle and hope in the way that he sings. There's always struggle and there's always hope in the way that he sings. But, a lot of the records, he is in touch with his sadness.
Yeah, actually, I love the way you put that, because for me, the voice is never one thing. On his sad records, there's often happiness. Like on Jesus to a Child, there's a whole verse celebrating the relationship. On his happy records, like Fast Love, there's a whole verse about grief in the middle of this dance floor banger. Even Freedom 90, which is such an upbeat song, it's actually dealing with some really dark stuff. And even Last Christmas, cheerful tune, cheerful sentiment, I've met someone special, but feels the opposite. It's actually mourning his last love affair. And there's hundreds of cover versions of that song, including by Taylor Swift. And none of them are quite right because they do not have his voice on it.
Well, and also just his phrasing. Frank Sinatra is often praised for being one of the greatest phrasers in music. But the way he would phrase things always fascinated me. Like one of my favorites is in the song Waiting for That Day. He has this lyric that's the peace I search to find won't be mine until you say will. But the way he phrases it is just insane. I don't know how he fits it in that part and rhythmically in that part of the song. And I'm not going to butcher it. I invite anyone listening to go listen to that part of the song. He was amazing in that way. And I feel like not really appreciated until now, in the same sense that a lot of pop artists aren't appreciated until later.
Yeah, I think the drama of his private life distracted people from the brilliance of what he was doing. But then he was a very contradictory guy, He made disposable pop music, but at the same time, he was critically acclaimed in his lifetime. He was massively in the closet, but then came out in the boldest, unrelenting way you could imagine. He sued his record company, Sony, but then signed with Sony. He was a complex guy. And I think all of that biography has distracted from the brilliance of the music. But I think it's beginning to show in that year by year, his music just lasts, It's still around.
Well, Sathnam, before we finish up, let's say, and you kind of touch on this in your book with the fact that your wife wasn't super familiar with George Michael, but let's say, my son, who's 14, sits down at the table with you and says, who is George Michael? What 3 songs would you play for somebody who wasn't familiar to give them the Cliff Notes version of what they're missing?
Oh gosh, I made a playlist for my family who was very skeptical and Noah. I would give her, what did I give her? Well, Careless Whisper, you've got to give. I mean, you can't fight Careless Whisper, come on. But then you've got to have a fast track. And then I think Freedom 90, iconic, still sounds great, great video.
The video is great.
One of the best pop songs ever, in my opinion.
Yeah. But finally, I think my first dance, I'll probably do that at the one I had for my wedding, you know. It's not a song he wrote, but I Knew You Were Waiting with Aretha Franklin. I love the fact that he doesn't compete with her. You know, he's not trying to out-sing her because you can't. He's obviously a fan of Aretha. And it's just a great conversation between two great singers. And I love that the lyrics contain a reference to Faith, because that is the album that came out a few months later. He's beginning to find his voice. He's about to be one of the most famous people in the world. And I love that song for capturing that moment.
I love that you say that, because there's a story in your book about how Aretha wouldn't look at George Michael while they were recording. And I just finished Peter Wolf's autobiography recently, and he had the same experience. And I'm curious how that always went in the studio. It must have been very awkward for somebody who was already self-conscious that is saying, hey, why isn't the person I'm duetting with not looking at me?
She did look at him eventually. They performed together in Detroit, famous because Aretha Doesn't Fly. And I think there's a great recording of that where Aretha finally realized, oh, this is more than a boy band member. He's actually quite talented.
Well, that's a great way to end.
My two songs would be Wake Me Up Before You Go.
Oh, old school.
Just because, like, what is this? Followed by Praying for Time.
Oh.
And you want to talk about both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, the lyrics so prescient.
Oh my God. And the way he sings it, when he sings the little bridge part, I mean, just thinking about it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, what's that line? Charity is a coat you wear twice a year. Yeah.
Sathnam Sanghera, he's fantastic.
Good chat about George Michael. Good chat. I did not anticipate going into the season premiere with a George Michael episode, which is pretty awesome.
It was great. Our first musical guest is Josh Joplin, who's going to sing a song that I cannot get out of my head.
Yeah, this earworm is not called the earworm. It's called This Is Where It Ends, but it's god dang is it enjoyable. So I hope everybody enjoys it. Here it is.
That's right. This is where it ends.
Hey there, mopping up the deck, with tiger paws for hands and scrimshaw on your neck. Are you the one I talk to about a burial? Someone in the hall who could talk to me. I forgot to mention, not above convention. This is where it ends. This is where it ends. Not too far to let the bastards win. I was born beneath the glass bottom below. My secret share a satyr who went by Billy Goat. And Bill and I were close, started a band on our own. He played on his panpipes and I played on my phone. Cops with masks, they burst in, hauled him off to Ben. This is where it ends. This is where it ends. We've come too far to let the bastards win. Now that they owe her, they bow a little lower and cheer the vipers on. Her Majesty is rankled, the Emperor's got no cankles, just a big boy diaper on. Pay me what you owe me, if fortunes were reversed. I'd take all my winnings and buy a bigger hearse for the billionaires and
I'll be bopping to that song for the next 4 hours. I'm telling you right now. It's literally that hook. I love it.
Yeah. It's called This Is Where It Ends, but it really doesn't end. It just lives in your head, rent free.
Well, Jason, this was awesome. I mean, it's great. I got to see you. I got to see your reactions. I love doing this. We love doing this. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did.
And we have an exciting episode next week. We're now on to a weekly format. You used to get more of us. Now you get less, but in a more compact way. We got who's coming on next week? More succinct, yes. Who's coming on next week, Danny?
Yeah, we've got Chris Parnell to talk about long distance running and Camille Perry to talk about something I know nothing about, which is dog park. Actually, I know a little bit, but not a lot. This was very informational for me. Dog parks and dog park etiquette, which I thought was fascinating.
Which I'm about to get my testicles off and I can go again. Not my testicles personally, but my dog's, so I can start visiting again.
Why?
What?
And we're going to have a wonderful musical artist. Ryan Hamilton will be performing. So please check us out.
See you next week.